1340 KVGC on the phone. Douglas Viviani. He is one half of the dynamic hosting duo of, there's a good idea for you. You could do a show of dynamic hosting duos from past that, people have copied or, hey, who hasn't copied Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon?
Absolutely. We've done it ourselves. Good morning. We had our own show, Never Too Late. We've had on the air a couple of times. Our own talk show, and I think we could do that. We could investigate, so that would be fun.
Well, everything old is new again. Heard Saturday nights at 6, Sundays at 6 each week. Douglas and David Cohen try to examine pop culture, where it came from, and why it's so popular. And as you guys say, try to make radio fun.
Yes.
And that's what everybody should do in radio these days, make radio fun.
I think so, because politics are important and all that, but it's very serious. Sports around here, very serious subject. All of a sudden, medicine, finance, and that's about it. At least that I could see on the radio a lot of times. Besides these great morning shows like yours, that's the one thing that stayed, I think. And morning shows around the country are a lot of fun. But once it's like 10 o'clock, 11, sometimes all of a sudden it drops off a little bit,
Apparently Thursday night, fireworks in the state of New York with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Big debate.
Yes, it's interesting. He's finally fighting back and asking the questions that even the Democrats want to know the answers to. If you heard, that crowd was, of course, a highly partisan crowd, which it should be. Of course, it's a Democrat event, and she got really creamed there over it, and not answering questions about submitting her transcripts to the general public about what she spoke about to the big corporations.
Douglas, are you a native New Yorkan? New Jerseyite?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, where?
New Yorkan.
I don't want to insult you there.
Or New Yorker, or whatever it might be.
So, Bernie Sanders and both Hillary Clinton, are claiming to be, the sons and daughters of New York. I don't think either one of them are from New York.
No, I think Clinton clearly was not. She moved here as a carpetbagger to become a
Thank
US
you.
Senator.
Thank you for using that term. I was trying to be I was going to dance around that, but yes, they're both carpetbaggers. He was born there he was born there, then moved away, right, when he was just a little baby, and she
exactly moved to Vermont, and so neither of them are really from here, and I don't really understand New York as 100% because in our daily lives, as everyone can see across the country, we're kind of abrasive and right to the point, and let's find out exactly what's happening in this, that, and the other. But apparently, some people just get a pass sometimes, and sometimes the questions aren't asked. So it was good to see. That was really like a New Yorker type of debate. It was good to see the questions answered. I don't care who you vote for. In some level, I do care that you vote because you know the information about that person and agree with what their positions are.
Right.
All the lies and that on both sides that apparently we've become accustomed to is just beyond me. Tell me what you stand for, and I'll tell you where I stand and why, and vote that way, and that's great. But don't tell me one thing and then really mean something else.
So, having said that, do you think that Donald Trump has New York values, and what are New York values?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't think New York values are different than anybody else. When it comes down to values and all that, it's an individual thing. You can't generalize for a whole state. We wake up, we put our pants on to go to work just like everybody else in the country. I don't know, maybe we're more aggressive. I would suggest that. Maybe we work that extra hour or something. I don't know. But I don't really know what New York values are because it comes down to the individual family, and everybody makes their own decisions for themselves, I don't really get that, putting people into different categories. I think that's a huge mistake. We're all individuals. So I don't know how to answer that question because I don't talk politics with my friends or family at all. But I do... I do see the way people act, and everyone gets a bagel in the morning and goes to work and works hard and comes home and wants to enjoy their family. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll probably regret saying this, but when I hear New York values, I'm like, what? What about California values? I've lived on the West Coast all my life. I've got California values.
Yeah, so what does that mean? That you're I don't know, the impression of going to the surf going to the beach every day is true for you and everybody you know? I don't get it.
And then you start looking at it from being a resident and a business owner in California, and you go, oh, yeah, maybe not so much on those California values anymore.
There are certain things. I lived in California for a year and a half. I was in San Francisco and L.A. for a while, a long way back. And there was one thing that was funny. There was this word called flake. I don't really have it where you are there, but you would make plans to do something, and someone would not show up, and they'd just say, oh, well, gee, I flaked out. I'm sorry. And that was like the reason. It was acceptable. Just making a plan and not showing up. I just changed my mind. I decided not to go. I don't know. I found that in my circle in L.A. a lot.
Something better comes up. Something better comes along. That's it there. So, hey, Douglas, big birthday in your household coming up soon?
Yes, Angelica's birthday and Leo. Both my children are born in April, so we were lucky enough to get a party for both of them. We combined a party's reserved spot at the local movie theater, 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, which is next Saturday, I should say. And what's going to happen is we are going to watch which just came out now this week or yesterday, Jungle Book, the live Jungle Book. So I heard and saw the reviews. It looked like it was tremendous, although they said it might be a little dicey for young kids. So that
I've seen the previews as well. And it looks a little edgier or a little rougher than the cartoon Jungle Book.
Definitely does. So I hope the 3-year-olds, or I should say now converted, new 4-year-olds in the audience for Leo's crowd doesn't get too upset. I might be ostracized for showing them the wrong movie, but that's what the theater's showing for the kids this weekend. Okay?
Douglas, let me ask you, as the father of young children, now 4 and a 7-year-old, do you feel that my wife and I were talking about this the other day because I accidentally typed something wrong into my phone, and whoa, I mean, boom, here comes this, a porn site on, and what? And after about a half hour, I erased it. But anyway, that's no. But everything is so just information, and kids are being forced to grow up so fast. And when did talk about values? When did we lose the value of decency and modesty? And it's not nice to talk about certain things on TV and expose young children on sitcoms, and you'll see a lot of sitcoms where the kids are more edgier than the parents sometimes.
Absolutely, and the language they use. On a show that you would watch, with your children and have no problem with. All of a sudden, they're talking about sexual innuendo and things, and it's not even innuendo anymore. They come straight out and say certain things, and it's a little scary in terms of how are we going to sit down and screen what's being watched so that we don't slip through some of this nonsense. And I think we got a little bit of an advantage now in that what we do is always tape the shows in advance. And we haven't got to that point yet where we're watching, adult-style television with these children. But when we get to that point, I think I'll be able to screen a little bit in advance and make sure the show is appropriate. But yeah, that's the whole thing. Even down to our radio show. I would like to bring fun to the radio as we talked about, but why? Because our world is so fast, and kids grow up so fast, and they miss out on so many of these things that I think that we grew up with sometimes. But when we reach the common denominator, even just we did the show on Saturday morning cartoons, it appeals to so many people from 65, 75 years old all the way down to the 8-year-old can listen to our show and hear something that they could grab onto and talk to their grandfather about and relate to and say, gee, what the heck was that banana splits? And pull it up on YouTube and have some fun with it, So I don't know, I agree with you. You do have to really be aware of what's going on out there and be isolated, if you will, in your house and make sure it's a safe haven, I guess you could say. Yeah,
I mean, I've been in, media for forever, and I've always said, well, I'm against censorship because I believe censorship is you go to the TV or the radio and turn it off or ask your children, Mom and I don't think this is appropriate for you, and but then now I begin to rethink myself sometimes, and maybe we shouldn't stream. DirecTV, Dish Network. You can get hardcore porn channels coming into your house now.
Right.
Do we really want that? Do we? And I know you can safeguard them and lock them and password them and blah blah. But come on, you can get around that kind of stuff.
Well, listen, let's be clear about it. That's the reason why when we talk about children with this scenario, children under the age of 18 are children and are minors and cannot enter into a legal binding agreement for a reason. Our society has, since the Egyptians have recognized that the child mind is something that's developing and it is not something that should be, given adult themes right away and destroy that childhood and also affect that person for the rest of their lives, because you do remember things as a child throughout your life. It does affect you. So I agree. You really do need to, take some care. Adults, therefore, can and should regulate what goes on. Free speech is great for an adult, for a child at some point. It's our really job as a parent to screen and mold what they're watching and also find alternatives. It's a lot easier to turn off that show that everyone's watching if there's another show that almost everyone is watching against it, if that makes sense. You know?
Right. Hey, listen, let's I wanted to talk a little bit about the KVGC FM, but let's talk about that next week because we had a little snafu this week with that. But let's talk in the time that we've got about this week's show, and you've got a pretty big guest, huh?
Yes, we're continuing with the Hollywood extravaganza on Everything Old is New Again. Thanks to my friend Terrence Winter, who's the showrunner was the showrunner with Vinyl. He's actually was just announced this week that he's moving off to another project. But he started that television show Vinyl, if you've seen it on HBO, and now we're watching and enjoying Max Casella, who is playing Julie. If you watch the show on the series, he actually was in Doogie Howser.
Vinny, wasn't he? Yeah.
There you go. That's him. He was in The Sopranos. He was in Boardwalk Empire. So he's a favorite of that production team, and I think he's doing a pretty good job on Vinyl if you get a chance to watch it. But we're going to experience his Hollywood through his eyes. We're going to get into Broadway. Believe it or not, he was the first Timon from The Lion King on Broadway. So I think that was pretty interesting to see what he did after Doogie Howser, and that was what it was. And we're going to dive into that, and then we're going to dive into a little bit about he knows Ben Affleck and went to high school with him and Matt Damon, and certainly what is he doing now, and what does he think about this new production that he's in.
Have you taken the kids to see a production of The Lion King?
We've seen most others. There's a great local theater here, Engerman Theater, that brings Broadway to Main Street, if you will, and they do a terrific job. But it has to be a show that's not on Broadway anymore, like Beauty and the Beast. And so we haven't done the New York City thing with Lion King yet. We did see Aladdin with her, and she loved it. She's a theater girl. She's actually this weekend going to be in a play Peter Pan herself in school, and she's going to be Captain Hook, so that's a lot of fun. But I haven't seen Lion King yet. Have you seen the local version?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to take the kids to see that. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. But when I first saw Max on The Sopranos, it was like, what? Doogie Howser's buddy is a It's a wise guy. What's going on? No, you don't. But after you watch it, you go, wait a second, that kid was on Doogie Howser.
Right, the mannerisms. Yeah. He's got the afro now and the beard in Vinyl, so he looks completely different. And I think that particular character you can kind of relate to. He's got some humor to him. He's also got that little kiss the bosses kind of attitude and make sure everything's going smoothly. So. But he's also trying to figure out the music industry, and they do dive into that and the changes that happened in the industry in the 70s, and from these local bands, or I should say the bands like the Kinks and the Beatles and Stones, to new wave, and he's lost in that shuffle like a lot of us were in the beginning. So I don't know, it's a lot of fun. He's a real good interviewer from what I hear. So we're going to have some fun with him for the entire hour.
How is that show doing, Douglas? Do you know? Vinyl?
It was renewed for season 2.
Oh, okay.
That was the good news. The bad news is they're up against The Walking Dead, so that is really a tough battle. Yeah. And their ratings are down. They're bringing in about 975,000 people, and HBO wants like 3 or 4 million, which is what Boardwalk Empire brought in. So I don't know. It's a dark show. There's some negatives to it that make it difficult to watch with your family. You really can't. It's a lot of drug use going on. There's, it's HBO, but it's reality. It's like a real look into what went on in the 70s. So I kind of get hooked on it. These shows, you got to get these characters under your blood. You got to like these people, or a few of them, before you're going to invest every week watching the show. And there's a lot of not likable or unlikable people on the show, I have to say.
Just as there is in life. Yeah, just as there is in life. So,
yes, exactly. So if you grab one or two, you may enjoy it. And Max Costello plays one that you'll actually identify with in some ways and enjoy on the show. We'll see what happens.
Douglas Viviani and David Cohen with Everything Old is New again, Saturday and Sunday evenings at 6 o'clock right here on 1340 KVGC. Hey, give the kids a kiss for me and tell them Uncle Jim's presents in the mail, and happy birthday to everybody, okay?
Sounds terrific. I sincerely appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.